What is up, guys? Today you are going to learn how to create your own Twitch chat bot. This entire video is going to 100% be how to build a working chat bot. There will be no other parts for this video unless requested, and those other parts will be additional functions. Once you're done watching, you will be able to have a working chat bot. So let's go ahead and get started here. Alright, so in the main function right here, in the run.py, in the run file, we're going to do a couple of things. The first thing we need to do is we need to open up a connection with the chat. So we need to create a socket. Now, I don't personally like to create everything in the same file. I feel like that gets jumbled and it's very hard to follow. So I create all of my functions and all of my methods in separate files and I import them. So I'm going to create an open socket function in an external file here. And as you can see on the right side, right over here, you can see that there's just the run Python file. I'm going to create another file. Let's actually just copy and paste and let's rename it because that's easy. And we're going to rename this one the socket. You can say that sounds kind of weird. The reason I rename it the socket is just because that's going to be socket interaction. So now we've got socket, we can delete this, all that good shenanigans, and we've opened up a socket. So we haven't opened up a socket, sorry, I'm such a liar. In order to actually use the open socket function that I'm going to define in here, I need to import. So I need to say from socket import open socket. And so that's going to be the function that I'm importing from this file here. I'm going to define this function simply by saying define open socket. Now this is going to be pretty IRC technical. Don't get intimidating. A lot of this is just protocol from IRC. It's nothing that you should really understand as a Python coder unless you're really into IRC chat. This is protocol that you can look up pretty easily on your own. But the first thing you need to do is you do need to create a socket. The socket is essentially the tether or the pipeline that you're using to communicate to Twitch. So we open up the socket initially. That creates a socket. Now in order to actually create a socket, we do need to import the socket class. I always forget to import, and it's kind of silly that I do this. And then you need to do a connection. You need to connect to the host on the port. Now, I could usually just type in irc.twitch.tv and then I could do the port being 6667. I could do that normally right here. I could type in the strings as normal right here, and I could do that all the way through initializing the socket. However, this limits me to only using this one individual program on this one individual website with a single user. Now, I want my program to be usable by multiple people, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a settings file, and that settings file is going to be the only file that you actually need to change in order to modify it to your own liking. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new file. It's going to be beautiful, called settings.py, and I don't know if you guys can actually see what I'm doing. You don't need to. Settings. I'm just saving the file. So now you see how the name changed to settings.py. This is where we're going to define our constants. So instead of saying irc.twitch.tv 6667, I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to call that the host. And I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to define host is equal to irc.twitch.tv. Pretty darned simple. At least I hope it seems simple to you. And then on top of that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to, what was it? Define the port equal to 6667, right? Pretty simple shenanigans. So now we can go ahead and back to our socket creation function here. We can just say host and port. Now, this won't work quite yet. You can't forget you have to import these values. So we have to say from settings import host port. If that doesn't make any sense to you, you may need to revise or go back over, review some of your methods and importing in Python. That's pretty standard stuff. All right, so now that we've connected to twitch.tv, we need to then send a password and a nickname, so essentially a login request. In IRC standards or an IRC protocol, you need to send your password first, which is pretty standard. And so there's a couple of ways I can do this. I'm going to do it a simple way that makes sense to a lot of people. I'm just going to type out the string exactly word for word. So the string needs to look like this. The exact string would look like this when I'm all said and done. If I'm using a password for this, it would say pass and then my OAuth key key, random characters, /r, oops, /r/n. So that's what it would look like if I were to actually send the password with a plain text. If I were to type in this string manually instead of calling from an external file. However, because I want to call from an external file, I do want to define the password as something else. So I'm going to go ahead and define the password here, equal to, and I need to get this password from twitchapps.tv/tmi or something, or twitchapps.com or whatever it is. I have it set up right here. Let me just go ahead and open the file and copy and paste it. I have it set up elsewhere. Control Z. Just kidding, this is all good. We're all fine. Nope, I screwed that up. Give me a second, guys. I suck at this so much. So I actually have my authorization key for my chatbot here. I'm going to copy and paste it in here. You're welcome to steal this. However, I am going to change the authorization key after I upload this video because I don't want other people taking control of my chatbot and getting it banned or anything like that, because I like my chatbot. And so that's the password that I got from the Twitch Apps API. It generated this authorization token that I can use to sign in through the IRC server. And so I'm going to delete this because this is just garbage now, not valuable. And so now that I've set my password, the next thing that I need to do is I need to send my username. And I can't forget to import pass. So now the next one is s.send. Can you guess it? Is it user? No, it's Nick, you stupid face. It's not user. Why would I ever say send my user and then I say plus, I'm going to call it identity just to change it up, to confuse the crap out of you guys. And then same thing, carriage return, new line. And so I'm also going to create an identity variable inside of my settings. This one's pretty self-explanatory. My bot's name is nida_bot. So all said and done, pretty simple shenanigans here. And so then next, I need to send a join request. So now that I've sent my password and my username to twitch.tv, I've signed in. I'm connected to twitch.tv and I'm signed in as the proper username or the proper bot in this particular case. And what I want to do is I want to send a join command to the chat room that I want to be monitoring. So the join command is actually pretty simple. The only difference between the password and nick commands is that it also includes a hashtag or a waffle mark or whatever you want to call it, or the pound symbol. And so then that one is simply just join space pound and then channel. And then of course the all-encompassing carriage return new line character. And then we're going to also define that in our settings. And so the reason we're doing all this in the settings is that if, for example, you wanted to copy paste my entire code, you wouldn't need to rewrite everything from scratch in the sockets. You could simply just go in and change the settings file. Now, something to be very careful about with the identity and the channel, the nickname and channel, username and channel, make sure to make all of these lowercase. If you don't do that, you will run into troubles, and I don't want you to run into troubles. That would be undesirable for most people. So make sure to use everything in lowercase. If you uppercase the channel, for example, it will actually connect to a different channel. It is case sensitive, so making sure that everything, it doesn't matter that the channel you're trying to join has capital or lowercase letters. In the end, the IRC server associates all Twitch channels to all lowercase names. So that's something you need to make sure you do. But aside from that, once you've done this, you've created the socket, your open socket function has already done everything. Let's go ahead and return the socket. So now whenever we invoke this function, we're going to open up a connection to twitch.tv and the channel that you specify, and then we can use that socket anywhere else in the program to work with. So now the socket has been created in open socket as according to our settings.py. We can now work with it here in our main function, which is spectacular, right? Awesome, super duper awesome. So what's the next thing that we need to do? The next thing we need to do is we need to do our initial join. So we're going to do join room on the socket, right? And this is just going to be the initializations, the hi Twitch, my name is Nidabot, I would like to join your server. And Twitch says, welcome to the server. We're going to do this initialization routine where you just sit there and we give you the list of names. And basically, we're going to sit here and initialize. Before we actually have the bot running, we want to do all the initialization so we don't have to worry about doing it in a while loop. You can do this later, but the problem with doing it later is that you would have to do it regularly and constantly doing it later because you have to have everything in an infinite loop in the end, which is weird. We'll get to that later. We'll explain why we're doing this first in a little bit. But primarily because we're only going to need to do this once is why we're doing it before we get into our while loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new function again called, I'm going to name this one initialize. This isn't a function, this is a file. We're going to name this file initialize because what is it doing? It's initializing our program, which is exactly why we're calling it initialize. So I don't think you guys can see this thing, but you'll see it in just a second. I'm going to call it initialize. Boom, initialize has been created. Wonderful. Now what am I going to do here? As you remember, I am going to use this join room function. I'm going to say from initialize, whoops, I can't spell for the life of me. Even though is that initialize import? I swear, if I spelled that wrong, I'm gonna be so disappointed in myself. So from initialize import join room, what we're gonna do is we're going to import a function that we're going to create, which is the join room function. This function is pretty simple. It's going to work with the socket that we just created. Remember why? This is why we created the socket, is so that we can send information and receive information from the chat. And so it's going to work with that socket, and we're going to generate a read buffer. The read buffer is just a string that contains information passed to and from the socket. And we're also going to define a loading equals true. This loading equals true is going to be our escape, how we're going to get out of the infinite loop we're about to create. So I'm going to say while loading, and this is pretty self-explanatory when you're talking about English. You know, while the program is loading, do this. And so it's an infinite loop that will never end until the program says that it's done loading. And so what we're going to do is we're going to read the buffer. And what that is simply going to be the socket. So we're going to read information from the socket, and we're going to read it in at 1024 bits or bytes at a time. I can't remember which. I think it's bytes. I'm pretty sure it's bytes. We're going to read information into the read buffer from the socket 1024 at a time. Then we're going to parse it or split it using the string split, and I do need to import string because this is not an inherent function in Python. So I do need to import string because I'm calling one of the functions of the class. And so this will split the buffer by new lines, and then we're going to pop that off. This has to do with stacks. If you don't understand stacks, I don't want to get into the technicality of stacks quite yet, but this essentially makes it so you're not rereading the exact same thing over and over again. But I don't want to get into it because it does take a little bit to explain stacks, and that seems too technical for this particular tutorial. You can look that up, and there's plenty of tutorials for that elsewhere. But what we're going to do is we're going to read all of the lines that we get in this temporary variable, and we're going to go ahead and, for debugging purposes, I'm going to print the line out to the console just so that I can see it. I like to see that stuff. And then we're also going to do a loading test. So if you create an infinite loop, you have to have a way to exit that loop, so it's technically not infinite. If I don't change the loading variable here within this loop, then this will never end and my program will hang up. So I do need to have an escape route, or I forget what it's called. I don't actually know a lot of the terminology for this, and I should. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a loading complete function. And I'm actually going to define that internally, so I don't need to import it from another file. But it's going to be pretty simple. When Twitch has finished initializing and doing all the shenanigans, it sends a string that contains the characters end of names list. It contains that character. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, if this string is found in the line, and by the way, I didn't explain this very well. Essentially, this line that we're checking from temporary is essentially the lines that Twitch is sending to us. So we're going line by line and reading what Twitch is sending to us, if that makes sense to you. And so the loading complete is saying, okay, if the line that we're receiving from Twitch contains the characters end of names list, so we do if end of names list is in the line, then we're going to return false, which means loading, if loading is true up until it says the end of names list, then it's no longer false. That means loading is finished. And so we're going to say else, return true, and boom, this will do our initialization routine. However, there's one more thing I want to do. I want to continue to initialize. I want to say, hey, we're done. You know, now we've joined the chat room. In order to do that, we need to send a message. Now, what we could do is we could just say s.send message or s.send, and we could do the standard sending protocol. However, because I'm going to be sending a lot of messages to the chat, I want my bot to be able to very easily send information to the chat. I'm going to create a whole function inside of my program here. So I'm going to go to socket, and I'm going to, because this is a socket interaction, I'm going to find something called send message. And we're going to call it send message. That's what it's called. And the input is, again, the socket that I'm working with, because that's the channel that I'm going to send the message through. And then, of course, the string or the message that you want to say. And so the message is going to be using the standard IRC protocol, priv message, waffle sign, then you include the channel name, then you include a colon, and then the message. And that's it. That's all it is. Very simple stuff. And what it will look like in the end is it'll look like this. Let me just copy and paste this from another line that I have elsewhere. I am working off of another program. A lot of people are like, are you writing this from scratch? Kind of. I did write the other program from scratch, but because I didn't want to have, any errors or bugs while I'm going through this tutorial, I am working off of a program that I have already completed. So those of you wondering how I'm doing all this off the top of my head, I'm not. I am writing this as I'm reading another one as a reference. So I'm not a god. I'm not a programming genius. I can't do all of this off of scratch with no bugs. But this is what it would look like when the string is all done and compiled. If the message said hello, this is what the string would look like. It would look like this. Private message, hashtag bad in Italy, space, colon, hello. And so we don't really need that there, though. It doesn't really serve a purpose. Once we've created that message temp, that character that we want to send, or that string that we want to send, you simply say socket.send, which is an internal class or an internal function to the socket class. And we're going to say carriage return, new line, and this will send the message over the socket. This is all you really need to do in order to send the message. However, for me, for debugging purposes, I always like to output things that are interacting over the socket into my console command window, or into my console window or command prompt, just because I like to actually be able to see what's happening. If something goes wrong, I like to see the last thing that went wrong or what could have caused it. And so now we have a send message function. Let's go ahead and import it into our initialize function. And so we're going to import from socket import send message, or it's lowercase, I believe. And so now that we've done that, we're going to just simply say send message across the socket we've already created, successfully joined chat. And that should be the successful join room function. And now, once all of that is said and done, this should be the very initial creations to the chatbot. This will allow the chatbot to connect to the chat, initialize, and then type out a message to the chat itself. And so let's go ahead and let's create what I call a persistence loop. So while true, persist is equal to true. And what this does is it just means it makes it an infinite loop. The reason I do this is because it allows me to go ahead and run my function without errors. I do need to open up the command prompt, though, because it appears that I do have an error somewhere, and we're going to actively debug it right in front of you guys. So I'm going to change to my desktop. I'm going to change to my chatbot example, and I'm going to run, just run.py. And what does it say? Cannot import name pass. Did I not define pass? Nope, I defined it as pass, or as path. There we go. That should fix it. Invalid syntax. Uh-oh, I messed up again. I know what I did. Forgot a colon. These are simple syntax things that I messed up on. It should run perfectly though now. Look at that. Boom. Look at how wonderful this is. So this is what will show up in your console window once you run the program. Now, of course, you don't actually have to run the console. You can actually just click on it and open it normally just by double-clicking on the run. But if I'm running it in the console, if there are any bugs that cause my program to crash, it will actually show up in the console. Whereas if I run it from my file system here, if there are any bugs that cause my system to crash, it will instantly close the window, which is usually undesirable because then I can't actually read it. So let me go ahead and open up my chat room on my twitch.tv/badinitaly, because you guys are probably interested to see this in the works, actively working. That's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and pop out the chat. Let me open up a window here. So let me create, I'm actively messing with it. So window capture, Bad Italy's chat, there we go, boom. You see the chat right here, right over here. Let's go ahead and cancel this. We've ended it. When I reopen it, look at that. My Nidalee bot, by the way, I would highly suggest modding your bots because they can't write, they can get timed out for spamming, or they can't write the same message over and over again. But you see that right there? My Nidalee bot has successfully joined the chat, and it typed into the chat, successfully joined the chat, and now it's right here. And apparently one of my viewers is just hanging out in the chat right now. What's up, Bestie? Hey, Bestie. But that would be the very initial initializations of the program. So I'm going to go ahead and close this window, and I'm going to close this window. And we're going to get continuing here, so we can do a little bit of logic so you guys can understand how to have your chatbot respond to simple commands. Beyond that, everything is going to be simple Python stuff. But as of right now, you pretty much have everything that you need. Your chatbot now joins the room properly, and now you have an infinite loop right here that you can do all the logic you want. Now, of course, there's going to be some extra stuff you're going to need. Remember earlier how we had the initialize function reading from the buffer? You're going to need to do this exact same thing. However, this loop will not have a termination condition. This loop will run infinitely. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to copy this because it's the same thing that we want to do. Don't forget, we also do need to define the read buffer. Can't forget that. If you don't define the variable earlier and you just try to reassign it, it'll have confusions. But once all that is done, we can actually go through, and I'm going to show you how to define, or how to figure out exactly how to parse values. So we're going to actively do this. I actually haven't done this recently. We're going to go to the command prompt again. Sorry, I'm doing this a lot. CD to my desktop. I'll open it up for you guys. Right? Boom. CD to my desktop. CD to my chatbot example. And we're going to do run. Whoops. Run.py. Boom. So I've successfully joined the chat. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you the chatbot with the chat window, which I actually opened, or I closed recently. Sorry guys, I kind of suck. Let me go ahead and pop out the chat again. Close those. Can you guys see the chat? Yes, you can. So now you can see what's happening in the command or the console window. If I type hi, whoops. Whoa, there we go. We found a bug already. Name string is not defined. Of course, because I didn't import string here. The things that I just changed caused bugs. I need to import string here. Can't forget that. Let's try this again. Let's rerun this chatbot. Successfully joined the chat. Let's type hi. Boom. This is what happens when somebody types into my chat. It says colon, then it says the user that typed into the chat, the user that typed into the chat, the user that typed into the chat. I don't know why it repeats it 3 times, but these will all 3 be the user. Then it'll say private message, hashtag bad Nidalee, which is the channel that happens to be where it is. And it'll say the message. So let's say, for example, I want to interpret this message. I want to have my chatbot respond with you suck every time somebody types out the word you suck. So it's just going to respond with you suck whenever you type you suck. And if I have 2 chatbots running, they will infinitely call themselves suckish. I don't know why I would want that, but that would be unfortunate. But what we're going to do here is, so now we know how this line looks. The line has colon, bad Nidalee, exclamation mark. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a get user command, which is pretty darned simple. I'm going to actually create a new function here. I know you guys hate it when I make new functions, but I really do love it because it makes it so much easier to call them and so much easier to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new function called read. So you guys can't quite see it yet, but you will. You will in a second. Read.py. There you go. So now I've created a new function, or a new file called read.py. We're going to import string because we're definitely going to be working with strings here. And we're going to define 2 things. We're going to define the get user, and we're going to use the line character. And we're also going to define the get message. And these 2 are going to be pretty much critical to working with this chatbot. The first one is going to pretty obviously get the user that typed a message to me. And the second one is going to pretty obviously get the message that someone types to me. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to separate. I don't know how to spell separate, but we need to separate the line into however many parts there are. So let's go ahead and look at this console. What's the easiest way to separate this? I think colons is probably the best way, right? Because the first one is, initializes, it states the start of the line. So first one is a colon, and the colon just before the message. So there are currently 3 parts. There's before the colon, there's in between the 2 colons, and there's after the last colon. There's 3 parts, so we're going to do line.split, and a lot of people would make the wrong mistake here, and they would say colon, and how many parts do I want to split it into? 3. Wrong. The split command, the string split command, is not actually, actually, do I need split? I don't think I need to import string here. Am I dumb? I'm dumb. Holy buckets. Because they come with the message. This is actually coming in as a string. Actually, no, I do need to do this. What am I doing? I think so. I don't know. We'll test it. But a lot of people get confused, and they think that this is the number of sections that they're creating. They would say, okay, the section before anything, then this middle section right here, and this end section that contains a message. It's actually the number of slices you make. So if I want to split this into 3 parts, I need to make 2 slices. So the line.split would be sliced 2 times using the colon as the delimiter. So this makes my life easy now. There are 3 parts. The user happens to be the second part. So the user happens to be right here, right after the first colon. So separate 0 would be whatever's before the first colon. Separate 1 is whatever's right after the first colon. And separate 2 would be whatever's right after the second colon. However, I want whatever's right after the second colon, and I also only want my username. If I don't separate this further, if I don't split this further, I'm going to take bad niddly, exclamation mark, bad niddly, at bad niddly. I'm going to take all that information. I don't want all that information. I just want the username. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this further using the exclamation mark as a delimiter. And I'm going to just split it 1 time because I only need to split it 1 time. And once I split it once, what part do I want? Do I want the part on the left side or the right side of the exclamation mark? I want the part on the left side. The part on the left side happens to be 0. It happens to be the 0 array value. And so my user is now going to be that. Now that I've got the user, we're going to go ahead and return user. And so that should be our get user function. Get message is fairly similar. It's the exact same thing as up here. Boom. Whoops. And then the only difference is that the message is not separate 1. The message is actually the furthest separation. It would be separate 2. And then we can go ahead and just print the message. Actually, you know what? Screw it. We're just going to return the message. We can print it later. So boom, we now have a get message and a get user command. Let's go up here and let's use our get message and get user commands. By the way, this is going to crash soon because I don't have, as you can see, twitch.tv has pinged me. Anytime this happens, I need to pong back. Otherwise, twitch.tv is going to assume I'm AFK and it's going to close the socket on me. So that's something else we need to do as well. Hang tight. We're still doing some logic here. We're going to go ahead and close this one for now, though, because we're going to need to reopen it anyways. But we're going to import from, or hang on, it's from read, import get user, comma, get message. And to test that these work, we're going to print user plus typed colon plus message. And how we're going to define these, we're going to say user, why am I using capital letters? User equals get user on the line, message equals get message on the line. Let's lowercase these back down here so they actually match their common things. And so now we can go ahead and rerun this from the command line. Let's go ahead and open it. Gosh dang it, why did I close that out? I should have just stayed there. So we're going to change back to desktop, and then we're going to change back to chatbot example, and then run.py. And so again, as you remember, we've rejoined the chat. We type hello. Bad niddly typed hello. That worked properly. We got the message parsed properly and everything. What we can do is now we can say if you suck is in message, send message along the socket, no, you suck. Ta-da, boom. We now have, let's cancel this program with the Control-C. I guess I can't do this because I suck. I forget how to cancel things in the command prompt, but it doesn't matter. Let's just reopen it. I'm stupid. Desktop cd chatbot example, and then run. Takes a very small amount of time. Now if I type into this chat, you suck, send message is not defined. Gosh dang it, I forgot to import send message. Send message. There we go. Let's try this again. Now let's try this again. You suck. No, you suck. And this says if it contains the line you suck, it will respond. So you suck So this is very simple regular expressions. You can use regular expressions on the string to do standard checks, but that's a simple chatbot that will respond to the message, "You suck" in chat. You can do things further, such as calling a voice-to-text thing. You can actually import voice-to-text stuff into Python. Anything you can do in Python now, you can do with your chat. You now have a connection to your chat directly, so anytime someone types characters in, you can trigger that on your screen. I can trigger it to change a text file. I can trigger it to make a noise on my computer. I can trigger it to play songs from Spotify, which is something that I plan to add to my chatbot soon. If you guys are interested, I can add that in the future. But before we go, we need to fix this ping issue, because the pinging is something that is incredibly important. Incredibly important. If the twitch.tv sends me a ping, I have to send back a pong. If I do not, I end up closing the socket connection because Twitch thinks that I'm AFK, and that's not what I want. So there are a couple of ways that I can do this. I can create a whole ping check and ping send function and create a whole new file for that. But you know what? Let's not bother with that. Let's just do if ping. Actually, hold on. You know what? Let's do this. Let's do if ping in line. And we need to do it's just send message. S. And I could actually set this up so that the socket actually has an internal class called send message, but I don't. We're sending the socket. We're gonna say, no, that's not what we want to do. We want to actually do s.send. What am I doing? S.send, because this isn't sending it to the chat. We're not sending a message to the chat. We're sending a message to the server. And so what we need to do is we need to do an s.send of line.replace, I believe. Ping with pong. I think that fixes the issue. I'm not entirely certain if that's what needed to be done. I think it fixes it. If it doesn't, that sucks. But I'm pretty sure that's how it fixes it, because sockets have a send function. As you remember earlier, we have the send message here. It's just s.send message temp. We simply need to take what Twitch sends us, which we saw earlier. It's not here anymore, but Twitch will send us a ping, and we will need to respond with the exact same message back, but without the word pong replacing the word ping. And it sounds kind of silly, but that's how Twitch checks to see that I'm AFK or that I'm still there. And so that should fix any issues. Every time that we receive something from Twitch, we first check to see if it's a ping. If it is a ping, then we send a message back. Now, of course, that's not actually what we want to do. Give me a second here. I think I want to, because what this will do is if someone in chat types the capital letters ping, it'll also tweak out. I'll set up some regular expressions and I'll figure all that stuff out. But this is a simple way to fix it. One bug that will happen is if somebody types into the chat the capital words P-I-N-G into your chat, they could end up having you spamming the Twitch servers with pong. I don't think that's a bad thing, but it could have caused some crashes, and that's something you don't want. So I'll have to look into regular expressions for this. I didn't actually think about this initially, but we'll figure out a solution. That is a quick, I guess that's not really quick, but it's 30 minutes or so of learning how to build your own chatbot. I know a lot of people on my channel have been asking, and I apologize those of you who are like, wow, this isn't League of Legends content. I apologize, but I know there are so many people that have been asking how to build their own chatbots, and because I do have the experience, and I've done this quite a few times before, I figured I would do this just for you guys that have been asking. And for those of you who are interested and you don't even watch my channel for my League content, I think it's something that's helpful that can allow a lot of developers, as well as streamers, create their own custom chatbots and have some fun with that. But if you did enjoy this video, I really would appreciate it if you gave me a like or a comment, or you just sent me a private message if you're afraid of liking or commenting something. I don't know why you would be afraid of that. I know a lot of people peddle for likes and comments. It's nothing like, man, it makes my self-esteem better, but it does help get the video out to others, and it does help me improve my visibility among developers. I know there's not a lot of present-day chatbot tutorials, so I figure this would be helpful for those of you who have been looking it up on YouTube and whatnot. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully it was helpful. I hope this outro wasn't too long and boring. And if you've actually been watching this entire video the entire way through, mad props to you. I appreciate it so much. So give me like a high five or something. You're awesome. Thanks for watching once again, guys. If there's any requests or something you want to see added to this chatbot in the future, let me know. And if you are a league content YouTube watcher and you hate my guts for this, good lord, dude, grow a pair of balls. Like, seriously, this bothers you? Really? Anyways, guys, peace off. Thanks for watching, and I'll see all you guys later.